The words that should never have been said. It was supposed to be a quiet evening. The press conference hall was bright, clean, and filled with murmuring voices. The movie they had worked on for months, a deeply emotional, international drama, had finally been released. The air smelled of expensive perfume, polished wood, and camera flash. Reporters were lined up like dominoes behind their microphones. At the center of it all sat Keanu Reeves and Ana de Armas, dressed in calm elegance. They both looked tired but proud. And then, someone decided to ruin the moment. It started with a simple question, masked as curiosity. A man with a pressed suit and a proud chin leaned toward the microphone. He didn't smile. He didn't even blink. His voice came sharp, like a knife. "Ana," he said slowly, as though tasting her name for the first time. "Some people say you don't really belong in Hollywood, that your accent, your background, even your style are better suited for, well, smaller markets. What's your response?" The room fell silent. It wasn't just the question. It was the tone, the weight behind it, as if he was offering her a reminder that no matter how far she'd come, she would never be enough. Ana blinked. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Her eyes flickered, not with anger, but with something deeper, something close to sadness. She'd heard things like this before, but not here, not now, not after everything she'd given. Keanu felt the moment freeze beside him. He turned his head slowly, eyes narrowing just slightly, not with rage, but something worse. Disappointment. Then he did something that no one expected. He leaned forward, gently took Ana's hand on the table and faced the reporter. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't insult. Instead, his words came out like a soft fire, quiet but impossible to ignore. "Every culture," he said, "adds its own light to storytelling. If you can't see that, you're not listening to stories. You're just looking at skin." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Phones were raised. Cameras clicked. Keanu wasn't done. "She doesn't need your permission to belong. She already does. We don't measure heart by accents or background. We measure it by the truth someone brings to the screen. And if you've seen this film, you know she brought more than any of us." Ana turned toward him, eyes wet but steady. Something inside her straightened again. The pain hadn't gone, but now it stood beside her instead of burying her. Because Keanu hadn't just defended her. He had seen her. Reporters didn't know what to say. The man who asked the question cleared his throat, but the silence that followed made it worse. It wasn't just embarrassment. It was exposure. Someone had shined a light on quiet prejudice, and now the whole world could see it. After the event ended, Keanu didn't say much. He simply walked with Ana through the side exit, away from the cameras and the noise. They walked like two soldiers who had been through something strange and unseen by others. He didn't tell her how brave she was. She already knew. But just before they parted ways, he said one thing that stayed with her for years. "The world doesn't decide who you are. You do." That night, social media exploded. Video clips of Keanu's response went viral. People from every corner of the globe shared the moment, not because it was dramatic, but because it was honest. News anchors called it a masterclass in grace. Human rights groups reposted the video with messages about inclusion. Parents showed it to their kids. Young actors, especially those from immigrant families, said they cried watching it. But Keanu didn't watch the coverage. He didn't tweet. He didn't post a comment. He simply returned to his apartment, fed his dog, and sat on the balcony with a quiet cup of tea. Because for him, doing the right thing didn't need celebration. It only needed courage, and that's exactly what the world had just seen. The noise after the silence, the next morning the world was wide awake. News channels ran the clip on repeat. Headlines screamed in bold letters, "Keanu shuts down racist question with quiet power." Keanu Reeves defends Ana de Armas with class, when grace becomes resistance. But for Keanu, it was just another morning. He walked his dog in a loose hoodie, nodded at the neighbor sweeping her porch, and picked up a bagel from the corner shop like he always did. He didn't carry a phone when he walked. He said it helped him stay present. But even without a phone, he could feel the shift. People looked at him longer. Some smiled wider. One man, in a delivery jacket, stopped him halfway down the block. "Hey, man," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "I saw that thing. What you said to that reporter. It meant a lot. My daughter's Latina. She wants to be an actress." Keanu nodded softly, eyes kind. "Tell her the world's big enough for her voice. And if anyone says otherwise, tell her not to listen." He said it like he believed it. Like it wasn't just advice, but a memory. Back at her apartment, Ana was still shaken. She sat at her small kitchen table, barely touching her tea. She had grown up with stares, whispers, questions asked in strange voices. "You speak good English," they would say, as if surprised she could speak at all. But last night had hit different. It happened in front of cameras. It happened when she thought she was finally safe. But then, her phone buzzed. It didn't stop buzzing. Hundreds of messages. Fans, strangers, even old classmates from Cuba and Miami. But one message stood out. From Keanu. "Walk with me today? Somewhere quiet." They met near the old botanic garden, where paths twisted between trees, and no one looked twice at celebrities. He wore a baseball cap. She wore sunglasses. They looked like two regular friends sharing silence. For a while, neither spoke. Then Ana whispered, "I didn't know what to say. He made me feel like I was 12 again." Keanu nodded, understanding more than he let on. "You don't owe answers to small minds," he said. Ana laughed bitterly. I wanted to yell, to cry, but instead I froze. "That wasn't weakness," Keanu said gently. "That was grace. The world saw your silence, and it made the noise louder. And when the world listened, it heard you." Ana turned to him. "But they heard you, Keanu. You're the reason it changed." He shook his head. "I just lit a match. You carried the fire." They walked until the sun softened in the sky. They sat on a wooden bench near a lake where ducks moved slowly, and leaves floated like stories too heavy to sink. It was peaceful. But inside Ana's heart, something had begun to wake. "My mother used to tell me," she said slowly, "never let their words write your story." "She sounds wise," Keanu replied. "She passed away before I got my first role," Ana said, voice trembling. "I always wonder what she'd think if she saw me now." Keanu looked at her, then said something simple. But it hit like thunder. Wrapped in a whisper, "She'd be proud that you stood in the fire and didn't burn." The words settled in her bones. She didn't reply. She didn't need to. Later that evening, Keanu got a call from his agent. His voice was tight with excitement. "Do you have any idea what's happening right now?" he asked. Keanu sighed. "Is this about the internet again?" "It's more than that," the agent said. "There are headlines in 5 languages. Major outlets want interviews. And Ana, people are calling her the new face of quiet strength." Keanu rubbed his forehead. "That's good. That's what
she deserves." "And you?" the agent asked. "They're calling you a hero." Keanu paused. "Heroes don't wear suits and answer microphones," he said.
"They walk into fire without asking for applause." "Still," the agent replied, "you did something rare. You didn't just defend someone. You changed how the world sees someone." Keanu ended the call quietly. He wasn't looking for praise. He wasn't chasing legacy, but he did send Ana one more message that night. "The world will try to shrink you. Reminded how wide your roots run." Ana saved that message. And the next morning, when she stood in front of a new crowd, answering questions with the same voice that had once trembled, she remembered his words. She didn't need to yell. She only needed to speak, and the world would listen. Behind the praise, a hidden wound, days passed, but the waves hadn't settled. On talk shows and social feeds, people debated the moment over and over. Some praised Keanu's response as powerful and respectful. Others called out the reporter's ignorance. A few, though, tried to twist it, saying it was just acting, just publicity. Keanu stayed away from it all. He never explained what he said. He never corrected anyone. Because to him, truth didn't need to be shouted. Truth simply needed to be lived. But what people didn't know was that Keanu carried his own story, one that made him speak the way he did that night. Years ago, he had loved someone who struggled to belong. Her name was Julia. She was part native, Hawaiian, part Mexican. A writer, quiet, brilliant, full of ideas. They were young then, both trying to make it in a city that chewed up people with soft hearts. Julia once told him, "They don't see me, they see what they expect. And if I speak too loud or too proud, they call it attitude." He remembered the way she folded into herself when someone mispronounced her name on stage and laughed. He remembered the silence she kept when directors told her to write something more mainstream. He remembered the day she left the city, tired, worn, heartbroken, never quite believing she was enough. Julia never got her spotlight. And sometimes, Keanu wondered if she still wrote stories no one ever saw. So when that reporter's words hit Ana, it felt like a shadow from the past had returned. It wasn't just about Ana. It was about every person who had ever been told, "You don't belong." And Keanu knew, if he didn't speak then, he'd carry that regret for the rest of his life. He didn't want another story like Julia's, brilliant, quiet, and forgotten. Ana, meanwhile, found herself at the center of something much larger than she expected. Magazines wanted her on covers. Schools invited her to speak. Girls from Latin America sent her letters, handwritten, sometimes in broken English, filled with hope. "I want to act like you. My teacher says I have too much accent, but you give me hope. Thank you for making me feel visible." First, Ana was overwhelmed. She wasn't trying to be a hero. She was just surviving, just working. But something had changed. She wasn't invisible anymore, and it scared her a little. One night after filming a long day, she visited Keanu again. They met at his simple apartment, the one with old wood floors, a bookshelf full of philosophy, and a kettle that whistled like an old man trying to sing. Ana looked tired. "They keep calling me a symbol," she said. "I don't know how to be that. I just wanted to act." Keanu handed her tea. "You didn't choose to be a symbol. The world chose you. But you still get to decide what that means." Ana looked at him, eyes searching. "But what if I mess up?" "You will," he said softly. "We all do. That's not failure. That's life." They sat in silence, the kind that only exists between people who trust each other. Then Keanu asked something she didn't expect. "Have you written to your younger self lately?" Ana blinked. "What do you mean?" "The girl who moved countries. The girl who was told she'd never make it. The girl who cried behind closed doors. If you could talk to her now, what would you say?" Ana swallowed hard. "I think I'd tell her, you're not broken. You're just blooming." Keanu smiled. That soft, sad smile of his. Like he understood exactly what she meant. "Then maybe," he said, "that's what you tell the world too." A week later, Ana was invited to speak at a major film school. She almost said no. But then she remembered Keanu's words. The stage was full of lights, the room full of students, all eyes on her. She didn't read from a paper. She didn't hide behind jokes. She simply told her truth. "They said I wouldn't fit," she began. "They said I was too different, too soft-spoken, too foreign. But every time I thought about giving up, I remembered why I started, because stories matter. And stories are meant for everyone, not just those with perfect accents or familiar names. She paused, eyes scanning the room. No one moved. So if you've ever been told to shrink, don't. Grow louder. Grow brighter. Let your voice be the thing they remember. The crowd stood in applause. Backstage, she found a quiet corner and texted Keanu. I spoke. And this time, I didn't freeze, he replied moments later. Told you. You've always had the fire. You just needed to trust your own spark. Ana smiled, not because the world was finally clapping for her, but because she knew now. Her silence had never meant weakness. It had meant she was choosing when to speak, and when she finally did, the world listened. The letter she almost didn't send it was late when she finally wrote it. The apartment was quiet. Outside her window, the city buzzed faintly. Cars in the distance, a dog barking, the occasional hum of streetlights. But inside, it was still. Calm. A kind of peace that only came after surviving a storm. Ana sat with her laptop open. A blank document stared back at her. She had opened it 5 times that week and closed it 5 times more. But tonight felt different. She began to write. Not for the press. Not for the fans. Not even for herself. She wrote for Julia. Not the Julia she knew, but the Julia Keanu once told her about. The quiet woman who wrote scripts no one read, who gave up before the world gave her a chance. The woman who had once whispered her dreams, only to be told they didn't matter. Ana wrote her a letter. Dear Julia, I don't know your last name. I don't know your face, but I know your silence. I've felt it in my chest, in the way fear steals your words. I know the ache of being misunderstood, of being seen through foggy glass. But I also know this. You were never the problem. The world tries to break people like us, people who come from distant places with strange names and unpolished accents. But the truth is, we are not broken. We are wildflowers growing in concrete. We are poems written in accents. We are power in quiet forms. I wish someone had told you that before the city made you feel small. I wish you had a Keanu. But maybe now, others will. Maybe now, someone will hold their head higher because you once dared to dream. You didn't fail. The world just wasn't ready for you. But we are ready now. Ana saved the letter, unsure what to do with it. Then she emailed it to Keanu. Keanu read it early the next morning. He didn't say anything for a while, just sat on his old wooden chair, eyes locked on the screen. When he finally moved, he closed his laptop gently, stood up, and walked to the small shelf by his bedroom wall. He pulled out an old box. Inside were folded papers, handwritten poems, ticket stubs, dried flowers, and at the bottom, a photo. It was Julia sitting on a bench by the sea, wind playing in her hair. Her smile was soft, but her eyes held stories. Keanu placed Ana's letter beside that photo. Then, for the first time in years, he lit a candle. This, he whispered, is for you. Meanwhile, the world continued to move. Ana was invited to be a guest speaker at a global film diversity forum. She wasn't sure she was ready. She had done one school, and that was hard enough. But something inside her said yes. And this time, she brought the letter. On stage, she wore a soft cream dress. Simple. No glitter. No jewels. She stood before a hall filled with writers, actors, producers, translators, and even film students from across continents, and she read it. The whole letter. People didn't just listen, they leaned forward. Because what she said wasn't just about Julia. It was about all of them. The ones who felt left out. The ones told they had to change to belong. The ones made to feel like guests in an industry built on stories. After she finished, silence fell. Then came the applause. Not loud, not wild, but long and deep. Like a thank you that came from the bones. Later that night, Ana and Keanu met again. This time on a rooftop under stars, she handed him a small notebook. "What's this?" he asked. "Your turn," she smiled. "Your story matters too. Maybe someone needs your letter now." Keanu chuckled softly. "I'm not much of a writer. But you're honest," she said, "and that's more rare than talent." He took the notebook, ran his fingers along the cover, then looked at her and said, "You know, if Julia could see you now, I think she'd finally believe her story wasn't a waste." Ana didn't reply. She just looked at the stars, and for the first time in years, felt like she belonged exactly where she was. The next day, a major newspaper published an op-ed by Ana titled, "To the Girls Like Me, You Are Not a Mistake." Within hours, it was translated into 10 languages, and for every one person who read it, there was someone else who saw themselves in her words. And finally, felt a little less alone. The voice that broke the circle. It had been 3 weeks since the press conference. 3 quiet, strange weeks. Ana's life had changed in ways she hadn't expected. She was now more than just an actress. She was a voice. People called her brave. Headlines followed her everywhere. Offers flooded in, not just for films, but for interviews, books, speeches. But she didn't feel brave. Not really. One morning, while reading an article someone had sent her, she found something strange. A headline that made her stomach twist. Reporter issues half apology after public backlash. It was the same man. The one who had asked that question. The one who caused all this without ever realizing how deep the damage went. In his short video, he said, "I may have spoken out of turn. I didn't mean to offend. I was doing my job." There was no apology. Just defense. Ana stared at the screen, heart pounding. She didn't want revenge, but she didn't want silence either. She wanted understanding, not just from him, from everyone who had ever asked someone like her to shrink to fit a mold. That afternoon, she met Keanu at the same garden path. He brought her tea again, cinnamon and honey. "He made a video," she said, voice low. Keanu nodded. "I saw. He doesn't get it," Ana whispered. "He still thinks it's about one question. But it's not. It's the weight behind the question. It's the fact that people like me, we hear versions of it our whole lives." Keanu sat on the bench beside her, thoughtful. "Have you ever told the full story?" he asked. "Not to fans, not to reporters, but your story." "I don't think I ever did," Ana admitted. "Maybe it's time," he said. That evening, Ana posted a video. Not polished, not scripted, just her, sitting by her window, no makeup, speaking directly into her phone. "Hi," she began, softly. "I'm not here to argue. I'm not here to yell. I'm just here to tell you something real." She paused, then continued. "When I was 10, a teacher laughed at me for mispronouncing a word in English. When I was 16, someone told me to straighten my hair and whiten my teeth if I ever wanted to be on camera. When I was 20, I was told to tone down the Cuban, and now, at 34, I was asked if I even belong." Her voice didn't shake. It held steady, like a hand offering truth. "I'm not telling you this for sympathy. I'm telling you this because maybe, just maybe, someone out there is hearing the same things. And if that's you, I want you to know, you do belong. You always did." She ended the video with a quiet thank you, not to her fans, but to the girls who hadn't yet found their voice. Within hours, the video crossed 5 million views, but one comment caught her attention more than any other. It was from a young girl named Maya. "My mom told me we don't speak our native language outside. She's scared people will treat me differently. But I saw your video. I told her we shouldn't be ashamed. Thank you. I feel brave now," Ana replied. "You don't need to be ashamed of where you're from. Your roots are not a burden. They're your wings." She read that message aloud when she joined Keanu for dinner the next night. He smiled gently. You know what's happening, right? What? You're breaking the circle. Ana tilted her head. For years, Keanu said, we were taught to stay quiet, to not make waves, to smile through the insult. But you didn't just speak. You refused to be silent. And now others are speaking too. He handed her a notebook, the same one she had given him days earlier. She flipped through it and stopped. On one page, written in neat, slow handwriting, was a message. Dear Julia, I didn't defend you when the world was unkind. I should have. You carried dreams that deserved sunlight. And though you left quietly, I promise, your voice didn't die in silence. Today, a woman stood tall because of what you couldn't. And I want you to know, your story lives on. In her. In me. In everyone who refuses to let the past repeat. Ana closed the notebook gently. For a moment, the world outside disappeared. No reporters, no cameras, no awards, just two friends, two survivors, two voices that refused to vanish. And somewhere, maybe not in this world, but in another, a woman named Julia smiled, her story finally told. Her voice, his silence, and the world that finally listened. The award night came quietly. There was no lightning, no fireworks, just the weight of a moment waiting to be remembered. The Global Film Award ceremony had chosen Ana de Armas as a nominee for Best Actress, not just for her performance, but for how she had carried herself through a storm. Keanu wasn't nominated for anything. He didn't need to be. He sat in the back, far from the spotlight, dressed simply in black. But his eyes never left the stage. Ana wore a soft blue dress, one that reminded her of the ocean back home. It wasn't flashy. It didn't need to be. It shimmered like a whisper. When her name was called, the hall rose. The applause wasn't loud at first. It was warm, personal. It came from a place deeper than celebration. It came from understanding. She walked to the stage, heart steady, not nervous, not afraid, just full of everything that had brought her here. And when she reached the microphone, she didn't speak right away. She looked at the crowd. She found Keanu's eyes in the back. Then she began. This is not just for a role, she said softly. This is for the 10-year-old girl who sat at the back of the class hiding her voice. This is for the girls who dream in accents. For the women who were told to change. For the ones who were made to feel like guests in their own dreams. She paused. The hall was still, but tonight, I stand here not as a guest. I stand as someone who belongs. The crowd rose again, this time in a full standing ovation. But her next words quieted them instantly. And I owe this to someone who reminded me that silence is not weakness. That sometimes the loudest defense is the one spoken softly. Her eyes returned to Keanu. Keanu, you didn't just stand beside me. You stood between me and a history that tried to repeat itself. And because of that, thousands now walk taller. I walk taller. Keanu didn't move. He just lowered his head, gently, like a bow of respect. Not for her fame, not for her success, but for her courage. Later that night, after the ceremony ended, Ana found him waiting in the hallway behind the stage. He was leaning against the wall, hands in his pockets, calm as ever. You knew I'd mention you, she teased. I was hoping you wouldn't. He smiled. Why? She asked. Because this was your fire. I just passed the match. Ana handed him the award. Hold it. He looked confused. It's not mine. Maybe not, she said. But without you, it wouldn't exist. At least not in my hands. He took it for a moment. Felt the weight. It wasn't heavy, but it carried something deeper. The invisible weight of stories, battles, voices, past and present, and then, as quietly as always, he said something that stayed with her forever. May this be the last time someone like you needs defending. May the next girl who walks through those doors never have to prove she belongs. Ana nodded. And may she find someone like you beside her, if the world forgets to listen. In the weeks that followed, Ana started a small initiative. It wasn't loud. It didn't trend overnight. But it mattered. A scholarship program for underrepresented girls in film. She called it Project Julia. Keanu helped quietly. Funding, letters, support from behind the curtain. He never took credit. He never wanted his name on it. But every young girl who stepped into that program walked a little taller, even if they didn't know why. And one day Ana received a short letter. It was from a young girl named Lila, age 14. Dear Miss Ana, I showed your video to my class. Some kids laughed, but one girl stood up and said, I want to speak like her one day. That girl was me. Thank you for being loud in a kind way. Thank you for not hiding. Maybe one day, I'll stand on a stage too. Ana framed that letter and placed it beside her award. Not as a trophy, but as proof that words matter, that kindness echoes, and that sometimes a quiet voice can change the world if someone believes in it loud enough. One evening, months later, Ana and Keanu sat on the same rooftop again. She looked out over the city. Do you think people will remember this? Keanu smiled. They already are. Ana turned toward him. But not just the moment. Will they remember why it mattered? He took a slow sip of tea, then replied, Only if we keep reminding them. The stars above were quiet, but they listened, too. And somewhere in the world, a girl sat at her desk, writing a story in her own language, in her own voice. This time she didn't ask for permission, because she knew now. She was not a guest. She was the author.